Hey everybody, my name is Andrew Davis and you are watching Conversations in Pop Culture, brought to you by my friends and sponsor, Mixum Printing, the smarter way to print. Printing your creative project can be confusing and stressful, but Mixum is here to make it easy. From their instant quote calculator that lets you get as many quotes as you want for free to their 24-hour customer support service, Mixum is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. And you can choose from a range of premium printing options and materials, and the company's printed so many successful Kickstarter campaigns. A bunch of them have been heard on this very show, and all the people who use Mixum say very nice things about Mixum, and so you should go and use them if you're thinking about kickstarting, because they are great, and they have offices all over the world, including the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK, and Mixum can print and reach your audience around the world. So if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to Mixum.com, and listeners of my show can drop my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab to get a 5% discount off their first order. That is Mixam.com. Type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of your current order to get 5% off. Every penny counts, every percentage point counts. And so, without further ado, I have with me returning guests, Casey, Bowker, and Ruben Romero. So welcome back, guys.
Yeah.
That was intense right there. You were zoned in.
Hey, well, what can I say? You know, I got a sponsor. I'm super excited about it. They're paying for this entire show to happen, and you know, they're basically making about 70% of season 3 happen. So
they're great too. Just in case you guys don't know, if you're watching this, Mixum is really good, awesome customer service too. So you picked a good sponsor, or they picked you. I don't know how it goes, but yeah.
there's a lot of stuff going on, and super fun stuff. But I'll tell the story off air because I don't want to get them canceling me and asking for the money back. But I think I've already delivered a bunch of business to them, so I think that there's a good chance they might renew, and hopefully they will. But obviously, we're not talking about my sponsor and Mixum. We're talking about you guys and what you guys got going on. I might get the name wrong, but obviously, Inferi 2 just dropped on Kickstarter, and I think it's it's about a maybe 4 or 5 weekend at the most at this point.
Yeah, we're looking to get $4,000 is our goal, and we're about 45% of the way there right now.
And so, I mean, this just came out. I think you guys are running for about 30 days, right?
Yeah, just under 30 days. We wanted to, so you talk to a bunch of us indie creators and know that sometimes there's like a 2-week slump in the middle. So we actually cut it short by a week because we want to try to avoid that slump time. It's an experiment. Don't know if it's going to work, but we're rolling the dice. Ruben and I have run enough Kickstarters by now that we feel fairly confident, right?
Fairly confident. I mean, you know, Casey was like 25 days ? When we were putting it together, and I was just like, sure, 1 week less of anxiety, not a problem.
Right.
But you know, like you mentioned, we're 45% of the way there. I think we launched Tuesday night?
Tuesday or Wednesday?
Tuesday night, because I had the day off the following day.
There you go.
So, and today's Sunday. So
yeah,
we're feeling good about it.
Yeah. And so before we get too far ahead, what is the basic premise of Inferi? Because it's been a while since you launched issue 1. Obviously, a lot of stuff is going on. You guys are running separate Kickstarters out of beyond this one. Yeah. And so for those who haven't heard of it, or they might have missed it because, well, there's a lot of indie comic creations that come out. Before we get too far ahead, and I promise we're going to get back to this topic because it's super interesting because there's a lot of experimentation going on with Kickstarter right now. But what is the basic premise of this comic?
Go ahead, Ruben.
So Inferi follows 3 Quantico students and their professor at Quantico, he essentially recruits them to come in and fight in the shadows, right? Look at and interpret the world and go after people and go after mythological creatures who are pulling off crimes and things like that, or maybe just, you know, for nefarious purposes, doing what monsters do. But essentially, underneath all of that, there is a ancient evil, right? There is a monster family who has been kept at bay for a very long time, and now they are rising again in power, and they're starting to use these monster families in a very strategic way. So Professor Abel has been fighting this fight for a very long time, and can't do it alone anymore. So that's where our main characters come in: Liam, Jackson, Nilam, and they're kind of puppeted by a shadowy organization called Skia, which we will slowly but surely let you in behind the curtains behind that. But yeah, essentially it's a globe-trotting, mythological monster hunting, secrets keeping, world-ending, high-stakes adventure.
And there's a lot of stuff going on because obviously we get students, they're getting recruited. Obviously, there is a lot of things happening that these students don't know, and they're sort of being slightly played, and they're also being presented with a lot of choices. And this is one of the things that I really like about this book in particular is that, you know, these students have a choice to exit, you know, once they start finding out, and they sort of get roped in, but there's room for them to exit, and they're also very close, and they also have different attributes that pump each other up. And I think that's something that's really missing in a lot of comics, is that it's very well rounded. And so what was this like, really building these characters, you know, building Liam, building, you know, Jackson and Leenham. I think I got the name right, or I'm sure you're going to correct me as well, because I can't speak today. But, and then also Professor Abel as well is very well-rounded. So what was that like, really building that up? Because it's something that I feel is lacking in comics in a lot of ways.
I think what it was is that Ruben had an original idea that was a lot different than the one that we went with, and those characters, I think they were in there mostly, right? Or maybe it was just Jackson. And we wanted to, just like you said, we wanted to flesh it out. You know, we like the ensembleness, we like the different personalities together, different quote unquote powers as well. You know, they each have like their own set of skills, I guess, to bring to it. And, you know, we're both pretty big. I'm a little bit more Buffy fans, and it's nice where you have like a Giles character with Abel, and then, you know, you've got the other, like there's a strong person like Buffy, you've got a little bit of a more wild card like Xander, and then Neelam's a little bit like Willow kind of. So, you know, that was a little bit of the inspiration as well behind the scenes, but I think mostly it was just, let's do an ensemble piece. And the first issue was really kind of setting the grounds. This next issue is going through Abel's story, and you'll notice as the series goes on, each comic will kind of center around each one of the characters. So while everyone's always there, it's really going to hone in each issue on each one of the separate characters, and how do they get to where they are, and how does that set the present / future in motion.
Yeah, and that's something that's very interesting about issue 2. And what I know about issue 2 is that obviously we are getting a lot of that back history. And we're now starting to get the real, you know, information and understanding the brevity of the situation that is going on, where this isn't just, you know, monsters and humans and there's a little manipulation going on. This is obviously more of a war that's been going on for centuries in a lot of ways with people. And this is something that isn't just happen tomorrow. And so even building out what, you know, Abel's backstory is and his rationale and his reasons, and really fleshing that out, because that adds an element of consequence. And then once these students find out, you know, they also, as I stated, have the ability to exit, and then they're making choices. And we're also finding out some secrets about certain people. And now we're starting to get more of a wholesome and an actual reason to fight. Because as I stated, one of the things that I'm struggling with comics, I struggle with anime, I struggle with a lot of literature right now, is there's no real good core reason to fight. And this is sort of that core reason to fight and actually have skin in the game. And so what was this like? Because that's what this issue really does in a lot of ways. Now, you might not agree completely with Abel's fight, but you understand why he has a reason to fight as a reader. So what was that like, really fleshing that out and developing it, and also giving it an issue 2 and not issue 4, because it keeps me interested in the story at this point, especially when I know what's going on. I think that's also a common mistake that's being made in comics right now, is the reason to fight in the core is done too late in a lot of books.
Casey?
I was letting you take this one.
All right.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, it is a great question. I think, it's easy to say, okay, yeah, let's just keep moving forward in terms of story, right? Like, let's go ahead and pick up on that final question, right? Like, no, yeah, not a huge spoiler at the end of the day, but the issue one, Professor Abel does present this question to these to Liam, Jackson, and Elam, and he says, "Do you want to fight?" Like, I've showed this world to other people like you, and they've chosen to walk away. What are you going to do? So it's an easy choice to make and say, okay, yeah, let's keep moving with that. But really, what me and Casey thought was interesting was if we did go back and say, okay, well, let's tell them where Abel came from, right? Because like you said, we could have waited to issue 3, 4 and revealed another turn, turn another card and then pull you back. But we thought it would be interesting to do it right away, right? Because it kind of lets you, like the students, sit and brew with that choice, right? With that, what are they going to do next? And it gave us an opportunity to really flesh out Abel and give you his motivations and what, who he was before this, during this, and what it's made him today. Because I think that a lot of the times, one of my favorite, yesterday was Batman, so I went and did the Nolan. It was Batman Day. Was I did the Nolan trilogy when I got out of work, and still, yeah, I know how you feel. I know how you feel, partner. I know how you feel. But still, all in all, there, still one of my favorite lines in The Dark Knight is that either you die the hero or you become, or you live long enough to become the villain. And I think that it's important to kind of show people like the good and the bad, right? Of the people who you're trying to showcase, so to speak. In this case, when we're writing and we're creating and we're putting these characters in the forefront, there's a reason for it. We want you to like these people. We want you to go on an adventure or go through a story or whatever it is that we want you to do with them, right? We don't want you to be like, oh, we're stuck with this fucking guy, right? So in this case with Abel, we wanted you to be like, okay, immediately we want you to feel a kinship with him, a brotherhood, fatherhood, whatever that case may be, whatever that looks like, but there is that opportunity. Hey, look at that. Speaking of fatherhood. So yeah, that was that situation with me and Casey and building out Abel and giving and choosing to give you his backstory now as opposed to later.
And I think it's very well placed, and also it's the idea that obviously we're dealing with Skia, and we're also dealing with the faceless men, and I'm ruining some stuff here, and I'm not going to push too hard, I promise, because I do want people to actually buy and back your project. But obviously, this is obviously an enemy, and there's some serious history, and there's some serious reasons. It may or may not be about a girl. I'm just going to throw it out there. Everything's about the girl. We all know it. It's every good story. I mean, talking about Batman and Christopher Nolan, it's all about Rachel. That's what it's about, guys. We all know it's about that. So having said that, which is shocking because I think Batman could have done much better, but that's not the point. I mean, come on, Anne Hathaway versus I'm just saying, if you could have Catwoman or
all right,
yeah, I'm just saying here. But all seriousness, all kidding aside, all seriousness, it's the idea that obviously we do get that, and there's a lot of stuff that's revealed, and I think it's really, really well placed in that realm, and it also really cocks the hammer for what's to expect, because as I stated, there's now reason for these people to fight, and also there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's happening. And yeah, so I don't want to press too hard because I don't want to ruin things. It's so hard, like but it's the idea that even just throwing that out there is wonderful. So I appreciate that. So that's something that's super cool. And then obviously the other thing I want to talk about that also makes this really cool, and I'm not going to press too much further into the story because once we start talking about what's revealed, I'm going to ruin the entire book. But I do want to back out a little bit and talk about what's been going on, because you just got a publishing deal for this with Second Sight Publishing. And so that also alleviates some stress, but it creates other stress because you have obligations. And I know because quick aside, and I know it's not about me, but I think it's going to get the point across, is that I obviously have a sponsor, and I have an obligation to be in the best interest of my sponsor and act appropriately. And obviously, it's great that they funded my show. It's great that it's making things happen, but it's also an obligation. It's a responsibility. And when you get signed, I imagine it's also a responsibility, where it's something that you now have to produce a story. You have to produce something of quality, and you have to make sure that, you know, what you're putting out there makes sense and that you have a schedule to release it. But it's also nice that you're getting distribution, and that, you know, this is going to be able to reach more people. And because sometimes in life, people on Kickstarters don't, you know, only back on Kickstarters, and people who want something in a comic shop only want to buy it at a comic shop. And sometimes there's crossover, but sometimes there's not. And so what is that like, having this deal now and also being there and also having some credibility? And I don't want to use the word agency because that's a comic book that you wrote. But no, I've been waiting to use that line for a while. I'm sorry, but
that was a good one.
What is this like? Because obviously it must be both, and it must be also really exciting at the same time.
Well, so Ruben signed his other book, Illusion Witch, with Behemoth, which is also coming out next year. And then we followed it up maybe a month or two after with this through Second Sight with Inferi. And I think even if we're all working on, or the both of us are working on different projects, we like to make sure that we support each other in our endeavors. And obviously with Inferi, this is a co-creation. I think there's a responsibility to the people who have no idea who we are, for sure. And like you said, there usually is a pretty big break, because when we go to cons, I know most of those people are not Kickstarter people. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've had the same experience as I have, Ruben, but like, you know, I mentioned, hey, this is going to fund on Kickstarter or whatever. And they're just like, oh, okay, cool. Let me know when it comes out. Like, let me know when I can buy it in a store. You know what I mean? So I think it's a responsibility to those people who we've never met before. And we're going to keep doing Kickstarters to fund the comics and to keep building that audience up, because we wouldn't be getting a deal if it wasn't for those Kickstarter people. And, you know, the 45% that we have already, I'd say 95% of those people are people who have backed other Kickstarters by us, which is great, which means we have a following. And we have something that we want to talk about, you know, in a little bit, that kind of hints towards what we have working on in the future, and how all of that's going to kind of come together. So it's exciting. It is a little scary because, you know, next year it's going to come out to the world more globally and nationally, and it could go nowhere. And we'll just, you know, put our tail between our legs and just go back to Kickstarters, because at least they pay, you know, they pay for the book. So we'll see how it goes, but you know, more excitement than worry from my perspective.
Yeah, it's definitely twofold. It's exciting and it's terrifying. Just because, you know, this is like, to Casey's point, we're able to do these Kickstarters in turn have this deal because of these Kickstarters, because we had a fan base that's coming back and making our dreams and and the things that we want to do, they're making that a reality. So there is that responsibility. And the other side of it is having that responsibility towards the publisher. Second Sight is, you know, it's a company that's owned by African Americans. It's all POC creators. We feel like, you know, there's a whole like Florida tribe, right? So I feel very like akin to everybody that's here. They actually picked up not only Inferi, but they also picked up The Agency, which is another book that Casey will soon be co-writing with me towards the end. So there's all of this kind of synergy going on where we're not only building our relationship in terms of what we do together, but we're also building our fan base together. And we're doing that in a place that we feel comfortable. And I think that going out and having the ability to do the Kickstarters and tend to that crowd, and then having the release date coming out, comic books, having exclusive covers that come out in comic books and in stores that don't correlate to the Kickstarter. I think all of that creates, again, more synergy, more people working together in terms of that fan base building and growing. So it's a huge responsibility, and it is scary, but we're going to do it together, which is what we've been doing since we started, making comics.
And it's also even just getting this story out in a, I guess, fashionable time, for lack of a better word, as well, because you want to give them as much content as you possibly can. And obviously producing a comic when you're very indie on Kickstarter, if you produce 2 books a year or 3 books a year, you're not Marvel or DC, because obviously you're not having the bullpen or the financing the same way a big company has that's monthly. And so obviously, though, and I think people understand that, but even getting ahead and understanding that if this is, I think it's dropping, in March, I want to say, or April, or is it not exactly known yet? I don't want to put words in your mouth yet.
TBD. I mean, March has been a date that we keep hearing. It's a little different because on Second Sight we're going bi-monthly, so that gives us a lot more time lead in terms of books, so that we can be ready there. And then in terms of Behemoth, that's going to be a monthly release schedule. So I might even hold back a little bit. I'm not too sure just yet, but I want to be able to make sure that I can keep up with that monthly. Because again, like you said, being indie, you get to a point where you can do 2, maybe 3 books a year, if the timing is right. And then when you've got multiple creators who are running multiple projects, that becomes a whole other world in itself. Me and Casey have been able to find those sweet spots, but I think that comes with time. I don't think that that's something natural or something easy to come about. We've been working together for a few years now.
It's also the two of us,
right?
It's a little bit different when, I think ourselves singular, if we wouldn't have met each other, it probably would have just been the 2. I would have done like 2 Hollows a year. You would have done like 2 Illusion Witches. Maybe you probably moved up more with Illusion Witch because of the deal. If it wasn't for that, you probably would have been like, oh, I'll just do these 2 and we'll see you next year, because there's not a sense of, again, agency being the word, right? Like you're not beholden to anybody. You're fans, of course, but like if you're like me and Ruben, and you too, Andrew, like if you fund something on Kickstarter, you just want the book. You just want the people to say that they're making this book and then it actually comes out. And then if it takes another year, again, I just want the book. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm okay waiting. I just want you to actually fulfill on the, not even promise, just the fact that if I give you money, you give me the thing I want back.
Right.
And like, that's it. Whereas like, if we walk into a comic book shop, you expect, a book to come out every month. And like, there's some creators who do it better than others where they might skip a month or 2 or 6 or whatever, and you're waiting, but you're like, oh, what can I do? I have no feedback. I can't really write to DC or Marvel. They don't care. At least on Kickstarter, like, hey, when's the book coming out? I'm like, oh, sorry, I'll next year.
Yeah,
sometime.
And I think that in that same vein, like Kickstarter funders, people who back it and who are coming to Kickstarter for comic books, they're starting to see they have that patience. They know that this is
for sure.
This is a side hustle, right? Like this is what this person's dream is. They want to make comics, so they're here. And some of us are better than others in terms of schedule and fulfillment. In terms of like, okay, the book is done, Kickstarter's done, I funded, funds are in, I get my stuff, it's out the door, boom, I'm on to the next one, right? Because there's others who, it takes them a little bit, right? So it takes a while. Life happens. All of these things happen. But at the end of the day, behind all of that are very patient fans, I think. So, and you were, even yourself, Andrew, you said, oh, what's the best Kickstarter reward? I'm starting, like I said, like I commented, I'm starting to think the following issue is the best stretch goal, is the best,
right.
Is the best add-on reward. Why? Because if our goal is 4, but we can get issue 3 everybody gets issue 3 at $8,000, there's more incentive, right? Because now you're growing your audience. Now your audience is like, oh, let's do this. Let's get the higher tier reward, or let's pledge some more for an additional print, or let's get the pin. So again, it's one of those things where us as creators, we're starting to find avenues and ways to not only work smarter, not harder, like mix them, right? That's what or mix them. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what we're trying to do. So even here within Inferi 2 and 1 and 2, there is a tier or an add-on where you can add on issue 3. And again, that's giving you the opportunity to get that book digitally way before in advance. And then as soon as issue 3's Kickstarter funds, then physically you will receive that in the mail. But again, it's given us an opportunity to continue working, which I think is the biggest problem with indie creators is the lull, right? Because if you're not paying for it out of pocket and the money's coming from Kickstarter, there's always going to be a lull.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because I'm obviously my sponsorship is ending middle of November, end of November, and well, I still have a bunch of stuff, and they paid for the majority of season 3. And when I get another sponsor or I get another position or I do something else to raise funds, obviously the more I raise, that means season 4 is guaranteed. That means season 5 is guaranteed. That means season 6 is guaranteed. And that's the whole point, is that, well, if I may or may not be running a Kickstarter at some point for this, the whole point is that my cost legitimately a year is like $300, $300 to $400. But if I raise $2,500, that means that season 4 is funded, season 5 is funded.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm not going to run a Kickstarter for season 4 or 5, because the more money I raise, the longer this can go. God forbid. Or maybe for season 5, I don't need to run a Kickstarter, and now I'm good for a while. Or that goal now can be $200 for the sole purpose of whoever wants the rewards engaged in that, because it's funded, which is a different way how to do business. And I don't know if that's how Kickstarter should be run. I'm not exactly sure what the full intention of Kickstarter is, and that's a whole different discussion. But obviously, you can do Kickstarter however you want. Like if you guys raise 30 grand on Inferi 2, for instance, you know, you're going to be funded for issues 3 and 4 most likely, right?
Yeah.
That's the series, probably.
That's probably if we were to raise 30K, that's probably the series. At that point, can we come back? Sure. Why would we?
You get what I'm
saying?
Right?
Like at this point, what I would do is, you know, we'd probably be like, okay, let's finish the series, and then we'll do one more Kickstarter for like a ridiculous, like
trades.
beautiful. We do trades or hardbound
2 trades
covers.
and then a hardcover with the whole.
You know what I'm asking, and where I'm going with this is the idea that now you could technically, and the whole point would now your Kickstarter would be a distribution play, it would not be a funding play, which is exactly where I want to go. If I'm to run a Kickstarter for my podcast, is that it's a distribution play.
Yeah.
It's now not a funding play. And that's one version of Kickstarter. The other version is getting funding. And obviously, though, I never run it, and it's super interesting what's going on with it because I've seen both now. And so obviously, though, I am actually super curious about something because we got totally sidetracked. And it's really the second site publishing. And obviously, and Ruben, you remember me saying this in January to you. I said, everybody's getting signed. And I said it, I think it was before you announced your deal. Obviously, I have my sponsorship, so I don't know if that's me getting signed per se, but it's a form of that. At least I would like to think it is. And everybody's getting, you know, a bunch of publishing deals or getting distribution at this point. And I'm curious, you know, obviously there's been a big realignment, I feel, in comics and indie comics, and the lines between, I guess, the big guys and indie has become a lot tighter and a lot closer, you know, with Substack and everybody getting signed and Kickstarters obviously being used to sort of fund and get attention, and then signing a deal. And so I'm curious why you think this is happening, because it's a big shakeup that's been going on. And I think it just sort of happened this year, I feel, where this is the first time at least I've noticed it. And I'm curious how you guys feel, because you're a lot closer. I've never produced a comic. I'm just on the sidelines watching what's going on. And I'm super curious because you're not the only ones who have been, you know, getting deals and people's books getting picked up and other things happening. You know, obviously Scout is a big proponent of that, and a bunch of other people. So I'm super curious because you guys are the creators. I'm obviously a podcaster and more on the news side of things and commenting on all this stuff and interviewing a lot of creators. So I don't have as much, I guess, firsthand experience. I'm just noticing and observing what's happening.
You want this one?
No, I mean, you know.
So
Not to put you guys in a rough spot.
No.
No. I mean, I think we both have our thoughts on it. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms of that. Yeah.
I
There's
think
no
what
wrong
it
answer.
is.
No wrong answer.
No, right. Yeah. I mean, it's a matter of opinion in many ways. I think what it is that it's a mix of last year with the pandemic and the big two screwing things up, or, you know, and a lot of stores either going the way of the wayside or not handling things correctly on their end as well. And then the other thing is that these big guys want to do, like, the big writers, creators want to do creator owned stuff. I think Marvel, DC are a paycheck for some of them. Not even necessarily a bad one, not even like saying they don't want to do those things. But I think when someone says you can get a creator owned deal for, you know, and you keep 70%, we keep 30, as opposed to, hey, I know you just wrote 50 issues of Batman, but like, it's Batman, you don't have anything to do with that. Like, he's going to keep going on regardless of what you did, because you were a small portion in the big cog. I think it's a lot more enticing to say, but if you create your own comic, you own it and you can do whatever you want with it. And so I think that's enticing for the creators. The other part of your question, though, is like, why are people getting signed? I think they're realizing that people just want content, whether it's on Netflix, whether it's on, you know, one of these streaming services, or if it goes to a Substack and it's email list, or it's, you know, just in general, people want to consume content, and they don't necessarily want the same things that they've been seeing for the last 80 years. So that if one of these writers or creator groups, us included, can create a splash in a new and engaging way, I think that people in general, myself included as a reader and someone who consumes content, I think it's enticing. It's like, oh, okay, you know, I know Batman, but I don't know this thing. I'm going to try this thing out. This seems interesting. Let me, you know, it's never going to take away from Batman, but it's also, you know, I want to try something different as well. And I think that these indie guys are making bigger waves because a lot of these other companies like a Netflix or streaming services are also turning these things into TV shows, movies, you know, other things well, so that like they're picking up some more of the obscure stuff and developing it, and they need way more content than even comics are creating. So it's a really cool time to be a creator and get your name out there and get your ideas out there, as long as you have the drive and passion to actually create.
So just to throw out a number, and I don't know if you guys know what Netflix's budget for content production is a year. I don't know if you guys know what that number is by any chance.
Like, for an individual project or in general?
Oh, collectively for the entire company.
Oh, isn't it like 52 billion or something around that?
I think Netflix last year spent $20 billion.
Okay, yeah.
On producing content.
Yep.
Which is crazy. That's more than Apple. That's more than I think Hulu spent. That's more than Amazon spent. I think it's more than Disney spent. I think Disney spent like 15 billion. If I'm not, don't quote me, everybody, on that. But and that's not knocking Disney or anything, but that's a lot of money to produce per year. That's in their budget, and so that's a crazy amount of money to spend. And you know, you look at certain shows, and I mean, Orange is the New Black. They spent a lot of money on that, and it's a big gamble, and it's so interesting. And I mean, my thoughts on it, and I have a very different opinion, where I also think that a lot of these companies also are saying, look, we don't know what the next big thing is. And so they're signing everybody and everything, because it's just that because WWE, and the reason why I came up with this conclusion, and this is my opinion, is that WWE, and they just changed their policy where they were hiring everybody off of the indies. And what they would do is that they would bring in a class of 20 students, and then after about a year or 2 years, they would cut 80% of that class and only keep 2 around. And then they would do the process again and again and again. And if you do it enough times, you build out a really nice bullpen. And I think indie is, and I think these big companies are doing a part of that, because they have no idea what's going to hit, what's not going to hit, because it's so complicated when everybody's home and something out of nowhere can hit because nobody's ever seen something like Inferi or the Agency or, you know, the Illusion Witch per se. And somebody might be like, this is great. Or it might hit a 13-year-old perfectly when it was intended to hit a 16-year-old, and then it takes off. And that's happened. And there's been a bunch of stuff that's done that where people thought, oh, this is a sleeper show, and then it runs away and steals things. And so I think that's also something that's going on in a lot of ways. But that's just my view, is that I think some of these companies say, we know there's good stuff out there. We just don't know what exactly is good. So let's just book all of it.
I don't know. I mean, you know, a lot of these production houses and companies, they have a general idea of what they're looking for. You know, the thing with Second Sight was they knew they wanted horror. They want to do more horror. That's their sweet spot. And Inferi kind of lives in that world. You know, it's not straight up a Conjuring movie, you know, in terms of horror, but it deals with monsters, demons, like the Faceless Men that you touched on. Like, that's not even their, well, we see them in the comic, like that's not even their true form. Like there's a monster there. So again, like they live in that horror world. So in Inferi fit, they wanted a little bit more action adventure. The Agency fit. So those things, they look for that. Behemoth, in terms of the Illusion Witch, they tell really, you know, deep character stories built in these really layered worlds, so that fit, you know. So again, they have a general idea of what they're looking for. I think in television they have a little bit more of a wider strike zone, right? To use a sports reference, they can pick up a show and waste, you know, 50 million, 100 million on it, and if it goes nowhere, they cancel it. That's actually their MO. Like, if you read about Netflix and the way that they treat shows, they are a one-hitter quitter. Either you cut the mustard on the first go round, or you don't. So for them, there's a lot of risk, capital risk, that they can take that we can't. Me and Casey, we can't do that. You know, publishing companies, indie publishing companies, they can't do that. If the book isn't selling, they're gonna be like, hey, it's not working out. You gotta go. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, I think with Netflix, Amazon, Paramount TV, all of these streaming companies, what they have is a vacuum. So they're able, like you said, to just keep, you know, that I agree with. Signing people on, creating shows. If this works, good. If this doesn't, on to the next one. But for smaller independents, I think that the more independent creators there are, the more independent publishers we're going to see start popping up. Right now, there's a bunch of them. You know, I think probably 5 years from now, there'll be even more. So I think that that's an industry that's just going to keep growing. Our indie level is just going to keep growing.
No, and I get it. In which that, I mean, I guess the way I view everything is that I feel like we're taking a shotgun approach, and it's also, it's at its infancy as well, where I feel that indie, it's never going to replace DC or Marvel or Image per se, but it's obviously an alternative, because there is this big alternative counterculture going on right now, and I think it's very, very important that people understand that people are just fed up with the same shit, for lack of a better word. And they want something different, and they also want to see fresh blood. Nothing against Scott Snyder, and I happen to like Scott. I happen to like James Talon IV. I happen to like, you know, David Bowker. But after a while, when you've been, or Tom King, you've been delivering the same thing over and over again, it's time that I want something new, and I want something fresh. I want a new coat of paint, and I want the car colored pink instead of blue. You know,
and that's why a lot of these guys are going to Substack, and they're doing things like that, because again, like Casey mentioned, you know, you approach me or Casey and ask us to write X-Men or Miles Morales. That's actually going to be fun for us in the beginning. But a lot of these guys, like the ones that you just mentioned, they've been in this game a very long time, and at the end of the day, they all started like us. They wanted to create indie comics, except the game was reversed back then. You had to go through Marvel and DC, right? And then go somewhere else, right? And then Image got created and all that other stuff. But now you have the ability to do one or the other. And, you know, it's exciting to write Miles, or it's exciting to write the X-Men, but at the end of the day, they want to do their own stuff, and their fans want to see their own stuff. So, you know, that's why you've got the whole Substack thing going on right now. And I believe that that's going to take a whole other evolution as well.
Yeah, I think Substack is going to be very interesting, and it's very much up in the air. And I'm not a content creator, and I don't want to. I'm dealing with enough things, and I will sit Substack
You're
out
not a content creator. This is literally what you're
for,
doing.
for, for,
Content. This is literally content, my friend. You are a
okay,
content
I stand
creator.
corrected for comics, and I don't know how Substack would work with me, and I'm going to just sort of let it settle a little bit, and which I'm already my glass is already filled enough with everything that's going on. So for the time being, I'm sitting on Substack out for a little bit because I'm already pushed to the max on my entire thing, which I think is understandable.
Very much so.
I'm sure you guys know all about it because you guys are swamped too, right? Like,
so we are swamped. We have regular lives in addition to the writing side of things, but we could talk about it now. Like, we are going to be launching a Substack at the end of the year. It's going to be called Infinite Dungeon Productions, and literally going to be talking about the comics that we write currently. We have a couple comics that we're working on that are going to be exclusive just to the Substack people before they ever possibly go to Kickstarter, possibly go to a publisher. Like, we want to offer it to the people who follow us right now. So we're working on the content behind the scenes that's going to get pushed out, because what we've noticed sometimes with Substack is that a lot of people get an idea in their head, like, let's create a Substack, and then have no follow-up. Like, they create it, they don't do anything with it. And that is something that we do not want to do. So when we launch it, we want to build that community. After years of doing these Kickstarters, we have a pretty good fan base, and we just want to keep it growing and offer those people something that hopefully they haven't seen before from other indie creators. And we're pretty excited about launching that later this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I have opinions on Substack, and everybody can watch me and Travis go at it, and it's very interesting because where I'm torn on Substack is that the people who read comics and want a Kickstarter want a physical book for the most part, and they don't have a problem reading digitally, but they want something physical.
Yeah.
And also the people going to comic shops want something physical because there's a whole collector's market.
Yes.
And that's where I'm torn on this. And obviously I come from the comic book investing side of things, where I'm looking to buy a book and invest in a book and then sell that book for double or triple or quadruple or 10x what it's worth or more. And so obviously, and I buy a lot of variants, I actually like looking at the art. I want to go get it graded. And so I like reading indie comics. I'm a big comicsology fan right now because I could read a lot more for legitimately cents on the dollar. And it saves me room, it saves me space, but at the same time, and I also try to back as many projects digitally when I can. Obviously, money's a bit tight right now in my life, but it's the idea that, I also back a lot of Kickstarter, so I like the cover art, more than I like anything else in it. Story in a lot of ways is second for me, versus cover art and variants. And so that's my issue with Substack, is that it's cool for stories, but I want to hold a book physically. And now I'm not against Substack, but I understand for what I want. I'm not a customer of Substack because I want a physical copy. And that's where it gets tricky for me, because I'm not a user of Substack. And so for me, that's a problem, because it doesn't fulfill my niche where I want to like smell the book, if that makes any sense.
No, I think
I don't have a book fetish. I want to get that clear.
I get that. I think what it is, it depends on what the person's putting out. It's very similar to Patreon in a way, where you're continuously supporting somebody, and you hope that at the end of, if it's a musician, you're seeing them write the song, and then at the end you get the song. Ruben and I are comic collectors. First and foremost, we always have been and always will be, and physical wins out over digital, despite the fact that I'll read both, so that even if you are the first person to see it digitally, we want to hold the comic that we created.
Right.
It ain't gonna stay online forever.
Right.
You'll see it first on Substack and you'll be able to read it there first, but after that, you know, we'll figure out a way to get it physically made because we want that as well.
Right. Because at the end of the day, like right now we've got a story that we're working just mainly for the beginning launch of this thing, and seeing hopefully if we can get it made with the fans' enthusiasm, right? So instead of running a Kickstarter for this book, we're gonna say, hey guys, here's a preview. This is what it looked like. This is what the story's about. If you like it, here's our paid subscription. And if you pay, you're going to get access to that book, behind the scenes, pages of the script, and all of that stuff. And then boom, when the book comes out, you're going to be first to see it. But if we take it and we say, hey, this book is, you know, YA, it's a fun space adventure, you know, that could actually fit with Scout, you know, and Scout picks it up, well then, yeah, Scout gets it and it gets made, but our fans and the people who made it happen and who are enthusiastic about it, they're the ones that see it first. They're the ones that get that content first, and then they can go and support it at the comic book store on a whole other level.
Cover,
right?
Whatever.
Variant cover, whatever. Exactly.
No, I mean, I get the business model. I'm not dismissing the business model. For me, I will just wait for it to get physically done. It's just my nature. I know a bunch of people, and it's a big debate. And again, I'm not as informed on Substack. Obviously, I know that I've been educated on Substack, where they're not taking the majority share as well. They're taking a very minimal fee for most creators versus the people who I think got grants. And I don't know the full disclosure, but obviously that's something. And also I have questions on their business model and how viable it is. And also, you know, when competitors come to the market, but that's a whole different discussion, because I think Substack is going to be challenged, not legally, but from competitors. I think Patreon's going to have to step up their game on what they offer, and I think it's going to be a very, very interesting space. And it's the idea that Substack's been around for a while, but usually first movers do not win wars in this space. You know, MySpace versus Facebook. Facebook was actually the fourth or fifth mover. So, but again, I don't want to get into all that stuff. It's a whole box, and I'm not dismissing Substack, and I'm looking forward to your Substack. I'll probably subscribe just to support if
we got one.
That's it.
As soon as I know, you're gonna have to like shoot me a DM on Facebook, because I don't pay attention. I'm so swamped with everything, and I'm now watching a lot more TV for the first time in like 6 months. So clearly, I'm watching a lot of anime actually. So having said that, and so that's something that's out there. But obviously, I do want to get into rewards in 1 second. But there's a book that I got to mention, because they're paying me to mention them. So
that's important. That's important.
And it fits with your book, because it's supernatural, and it's called Kane. So Kane is a supernatural drama with action, horror, and a ton of kick-ass stuff in there. And it's written by Taylor Campbell, and with art done by Allison Shepard. And actually, what's super cool about this is that it's pretty much this idea where, think of Supernatural with a little bit of Buffy in there, and pretty much all this supernatural stuff is going on. Some guy is dealing with an enemy, and basically the enemy, and he was sort of at death, and then he escaped, and pretty much he's dealing with this, and they got to stop all of this stuff happening in this town. So if you love Supernatural, you love obviously Inferi, and you're going to love this book, because it is the same thing, and it's super amazing in everything they're doing. This is what it looks like. This is the cover. So if you're just a cover nut, obviously the cover is perfect for you, because who doesn't love a half-naked chick with a shotgun? And what's cool about this book in particular is that 50% of the profits of this are actually being donated to the daughter of the creator's friend, who lost her life just recently, and her daughter's obviously young, and so it is very much a charity book. The book is completely done. They are over 500% funded, and obviously every dollar that goes there, you know, half of it is being donated. And it's coming out, I think, late this year, early next year, and it goes perfectly because it's right in the roots of Inferi. And so obviously go back Inferi too, and if you read both of them at the same time, I think you'll get your Supernatural vibe on what's going on with it. And so that's something to go check out. That is Kane. It's currently up on Kickstarter. They got like 2 weeks left, and it's an amazing book, and I cannot speak enough about it. It's also $10. gets you what you need. Issues 1 and 2 are happening, so obviously check that out. And having said all that, let's talk about your rewards, because that's why we're all here. And so obviously we got digital, issues 1 and 2, and then I think there's issues just digital for 2. And so I love digital stuff. Obviously digital is cheaper. Shipping is a bitch right now. You know, shipping is increasing. I know, because I'm an eBay seller, and it is horrific. And the holiday season are not fun. But more importantly, and then also you have some other stuff. So obviously this is the first issue right there. Mm-hmm. And then I think this is, you know, issue 2. It's one of the covers for issue 2, I believe.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously this is one of them. I think is this the regular cover A, or is this the B?
This is cover A. This was Rodrigo Catraca and PH Gomez on colors.
And so that's cover A, and then
that's cover A, and that's cover B.
Cover B.
And so cover B is a lot more exciting, and I believe Professor Abel has some explaining to do.
Yeah, we wanted to do a 180 from the other cover. The other cover is a scene that plays out in the book, whereas this is maybe a side story during Professor Abel's past that you might not see in the book. But
you mean his adventures dating a redhead?
I guess so. It looks explosive.
Yeah.
So
that's Alexander Malashev on the cover. He did the pencils, inks, and the colors. He does the artwork for Midnight Highway, and it was just a lot of fun working with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, we decided we wanted a variant cover that kind of just embodied the whole theme of issue 2. And issue 2 really is a kind of breakneck speed tour through Abel's mind and his past of what he's been through to get us here to where we are with these kids. And it serves as kind of like just a heat check, a temp check for all of our characters, because it kind of like lets us breathe, let us get to know Abel, and then at the end we pick right back up with them. So again, it's we just wanted a cover that kind of made all of that possible.
And you're doing something very cool with this cover. I don't know if you're doing it with cover A, but you're doing a hollow foil also for cover B. And I don't know if you guys ever did one before in one of your Kickstarters. I don't remember.
This is the first time.
We're hollow foil virgins.
So I'm going to ask a stupid question, because is it all hollow foil, or are there just components of it being hollow foiled? Because you could do both. I know that you could highlight certain things. Obviously, Zenoscope has done certain hollow foils where only parts of it, like a necklace, is hollow foiled. Or I have a cover that it's Robin, and then Robin it doesn't have one of the eyes, and it's magical, and that's a golden, and it's hollow foiled. So you could do spot hollow foiled. You could do completely hollow foiled. And I'm not too sure what that is, or you could just do straight foil. I'm not exactly sure what the technical term is, but I think everybody knows where I'm going with this. So how is it going to look, or is that undecided at the moment?
No, we use Comics Wellspring. I've got a really good relationship with them, and they just started doing hollow foil covers. They offer spot hollow foil where I could see like the sun, or maybe like the gun sparks. That would have been cool, but we decided to go with like just a straight up gold hollow foil cover, the whole thing from top to bottom. And so that way when you move it back and forth or up and down, there's that, it gives it that really cool effect. We're excited about it. This is our first hollow foil cover that we've ever offered in any of our projects.
And so it's going to be cool, and it's going to be fun, because obviously once you start going down this, and I don't think you guys have done a medal yet at this point, unless you have. I don't know if you did, but that's next. Yeah. And that's next. We know it's coming. We know it's coming.
Maybe. That sounds like really heavy shipping. I don't know.
Metal covers aren't that bad. They're actually relatively, I think they're like maybe like 25 cents more at the most. A metal cover is not that heavy. It's really not that heavy. And also the prices that metals go for. It's like you could charge the cheapest I've seen a metal on Kickstarter is like $50.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna do an augmented reality cover next.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Hey, there are people who've done those comics
Yeah, no, Mike Tenner did one, right? That's what that was, right? That Midnight Highway cover that he was
I don't
doing.
know.
That
I
like
think it was. I know there was
it'd
like
be
a
like,
black and white one too. He
but
did.
So Balance Scally did an augmented comic where essentially it's almost like a QR code, and there's certain things that are outside the panel between panels, and you take your phone in their app, and it sort of delivers into the panel in a lot of ways,
Hmm.
and it's super cool. And then they also did where you could be drawn into it in augmented reality in parts of the book that is for you only almost, and then it's like almost like in hidden messaging. And then they did an augmented reality artwork so that you could buy artwork so that in their app you could actually see the regular artwork and you could see it move with the app. And then they've done other things on t-shirts, and it's super cool, that entire thing. So I would love an augmented reality thing, but you need
I was joking, but now that sounds really cool.
yeah, like I would love to do something like where it's just blank, and then when you
Yeah,
point
exactly.
it, then
Like
that
a whole
cover
world
starts to come
opens
to
up.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be dope.
Huh.
That'd be dope. I love the one that Mike did for Midnight Highway, like with the whole TVs and everything. Like it was really cool. That one was really dope. But yeah, I mean, just the rewards are there, man. Holofoils, stickers. Well, stickers are more of a giveaway for you guys.
Yeah.
Little throw-ins.
T-shirts.
But we've got the T-shirt. We got the T-shirt that's showing off that demon there, parasite demon. You'll see what that demon's all about. And we've got the action shot trading card that's going to highlight Abel. We thought it was pretty cool. I did some cards for Illusion Witch, and we just thought that it would be cool to like take these moments, out of the book and say, look here, and give you even some more information on the character. And yeah, man, you can catch up digitally, you can catch up physically. We have some original artwork. We did have a tier where you could get drawn in, but that's all gone now.
It. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's sold out. But yeah, maybe we'll do that for issue 4 as well. Yeah, I don't know what else to tell you, man. It's just a badass book with some cool rewards.
There's some other cool stuff. There's obviously a Zoom conference for anything about Kickstarter help, obviously comic writing, really any questions, because some people will just need help or they just need some advice or some guidance.
Yeah.
And obviously, you both try to help, and obviously you try to answer questions when things come in. Or if I just ask a question saying, hey, what are the best Kickstarter goals? That's an easy response for most people.
Yeah.
But, and I know you guys try to be as helpful, but I'm busy, you're busy, everybody, and there's only so much help I can offer somebody. And my area of expertise is more comic book investing, and I try to be active in those groups. But I can only offer so many people so many things with what I have. And obviously, this is just one of those things where it's obviously more personal, and it's more help with guidance, and it's saying, hey, because somebody might know what they're doing as far as writing a comic, but they might want help on how do I run a Kickstarter, because there's a big difference between running a Kickstarter and writing a comic, because one of those things is more operations and logistics, and one of them is more creative, I think is a safe assumption. And so obviously that's something that could be very helpful. Also some original art pages, original art is always cool, and people like original art. And so that's something to pay attention to as well. And so there's just a bunch of stuff. And obviously you also have an international shipping tier, which is a big fault of Kickstarter. They should make it, and I think that they don't have it, where I think you can only set one international price right now on international shipping on Kickstarter. And that's a big issue with Kickstarter, and that's an easily fixable solution for Kickstarter. But obviously having that tier is probably really helpful as well.
Yeah, we hope so.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, it hasn't hit yet, but usually, we do have some international backers. I think that, the $40, there is no shipping on that, for international backers, right? So the $40 encompasses everything.
And they get something exclusive, right?
Right. Plus they get something exclusive. They get the Rand side story on a postcard, which was only done digitally. So then that's exclusive for international backers. And again, there's no shipping there because, again, they're paying for the rewards, the extras, and then the other half of that, actually the 20 and 20, it kind of breaks even because, to be honest with you, I don't know how they would formulate that that price tier, Andrew, that you're talking about, because right now at the moment, Canada's like 22 bucks, and something like Germany, where I just shipped the Illusion Witch to, 2 books was like almost $30,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So again, it kind of gets tricky. So I think at this point we decided that 40 was a good bar, where we weren't losing and we weren't, I feel, overcharging
Yeah,
for
for what you
both
get.
shipping and what
Yeah.
you're getting,
Yeah, it's very tricky. I don't ship internationally on eBay because I don't want to deal with that
It's
problem.
hard.
It is.
And it
Oh,
becomes a bigger issue. And also, when you're shipping a $300 book, I really want to keep it as local and as not in the mail as possible. I don't want it on a plane as much as possible. I don't want it on a boat, because the more it travels, if it takes 3 months for it to get to a place or 6 weeks to get to a place, more damage can happen just
Yep.
statistically. And while I pay for insurance on that type of stuff, I don't want to have to deal with it and have an unhappy customer. And even when I'm shipping CGC books, things can happen. And so if it's in the US, not saying things can't happen, but the likelihood, if I'm shipping something to California that's going to take 4 days to get there versus saying 6 weeks to get there, is just lower. And it's just basic business. And I could be completely wrong. It could be a fallacy, but it's the idea that I think I'm thinking logically at the very least. And if I'm not, please correct me. Feel free to yell at me.
You're doing good. You're right. Yeah.
And so, but it's important. And also shipping with certain countries, I know, and I think me and Ruben and you spoke about it, where shipping in Argentina was shut down for 14 months, which is crazy. And I don't know what they are right now, but that's a big issue in and of itself. So
I don't think I've ever mailed a comic book to South America, to be honest with you, which is a shame, considering I was born in Venezuela. But overseas, with Illusion Witch, like I said, I just did Germany, Malta, England, Spain, and again Canada, and again, all of those were ranging anywhere between $20 to $30. So I think that there's a precedent. As creators, we want to have as far as reach as possible, but it also needs to make sense for us as well, because if we're eating shipping a lot, and again, a lot of the times people think, oh, just shipping when you pay to the post. Yeah, but what about the bag, the board, the Gemini folder box, the label, the shipping return labels? All of that is in your shipping price. I'm not just charging you for what it costs me at the register. I'm charging you for all of it, because it's all fun. We're all funding it together, right? That's the whole point of Kickstarter. All of that stuff involves all of the production budget. So again, it's what we're talking about here, is you got to find the right medium.
Yeah, I'm well aware. I'm well aware. I recycle Geminis, and I love recycling Geminis. So I bought a bunch of Geminis, but then when I order comics, I recycle those Geminis, and that's what you have to do sometimes, and it's crazy. I've recycled a bunch of your things that you sent me, and it's crazy.
Nah, use those boxes.
Whatever works.
Use them up.
Yeah,
whatever works.
Those are expensive boxes.
Seriously, get more life out of them.
Exactly.
The reason why I do it is because, well, it gets another use. It's less pollution. Another thing, doesn't get printed.
Yeah.
And I think it's more eco-friendly, and it saves me 50 cents. And every penny counts. It's crazy when every penny counts. And you might say, oh, only 5%. Well, I've had a bunch of people with Mixum be like, I need a printer. This printer sucks that I'm using. And well, 5% saves me $400 on my printing order. And well, you notice if you're on a sort of a fixed budget, and maybe it's going to cost you $100 more, or whoever you're using, whoever's getting you a discount, every percentage point counts. I've been there. I'm sure you guys have been there, where you're counting your pennies. Every cent counts. But I don't want to go into that rabbit hole, and I'm super curious. I'm not going to ask you how Kickstarter is, because I beat that question with both of you enough. But I am curious how you feel about conventions and all that stuff, because I know, Ruben, you're going to New York Comic Con. I don't know if you're going, KC. I don't know what you guys have been doing. I'm sitting it out for health reasons. I am more susceptible to COVID just due to a condition. I'm vaccinated, and I just don't want to put myself at risk. I'm vaccinated. I'm fully vaccinated. I have no desire to go out because if I get it, it's going to be bad. And I know that even if I get it with vaccinations and me being vaccinated, it is going to suck for me and I'm at risk. So I'm choosing not to do conventions, and that's a personal choice. But obviously, I let everybody figure out what they want to do with their life because that's their life and I make choices. And so I'm curious how you guys feel about it, what's it's looking like. I know New York Comic Con's having a bunch of things with vaccination cards and masks, and obviously that's sort of happening, but I'm curious where you guys stand on all of it and where you think it's going.
I mean, I did Tampa Bay Comic Con. You know, I'm vaccinated. At this point, I can't. This industry requires us to be out there, man, and talking to people and going to shows and doing these things. That's why a lot of comic book creators, again, are you know, go full circle back to your question about Substack. Is, you know, they're trying to find different ways of doing things. Online conventions. This requires human interaction. You need fans to read the books. So at this point, I've done everything that I can to be in the best position, not to catch COVID and not to have it hit me as hard as it can if I were to catch it. So yeah, I went, you know, I worked Tampa Bay Comic Con. That was fun. I missed it terribly. I'm going to be at New York Comic Con, like you mentioned, with Behemoth. They're going to have a huge island booth. I'm sure there's going to be surrounded by a sea of people, even though New York Comic Con is taking precautions, daily, you know, audience limit, you know, in terms of how many people they're letting in, masks, negative tests, vaccination cards, all of those things are required at the door. So they're doing everything that they can to make it a fun, safe show. I appreciate that. I'm sure all the other creators appreciate that. And we're only hoping that eventually we can get back to where, you know, we'll all be packed in as, you know, like sardines and breathing on top of each other and not worrying about getting sick or not. I personally don't like it that way. You know, I like it this way. I'm a fan of, like, you know, during the pandemic, I went to Disney World. It's like a ghost town because they only let so many people in. And I'm like, this is how you do Disney. I would pay more to have to do Disney this way. And I would still buy the annual pass and I would pay more if I could do Disney like this. Same thing with movie theaters. You know, I love the whole, you're blacking out, you know, certain sections, certain amount of seats between people. I like that. I don't like sitting next to a stranger and I'm trying to listen to the dialogue and all I can do is hear him breathe. You know what I'm saying? Like that's,
I like small wrestling shows. I love small wrestling shows. I love there's only 100 people there. And you know what it is? The way around that problem is you just stream it. And guess what? You know, it works. It's fantastic. I don't want to be around people. I don't really like people. No offense to anybody.
I like streaming. You know, I'm a big fan of Shang-Chi. If Shang-Chi would have been $30 premiere access, I would have bought it. I wouldn't have not gone to the theater. But I do enjoy getting out, and I love, I'm sure Casey can agree, is the atmosphere of conventions. Like, I was sitting there watching kids. Like, there was this guy, you know, dressed as Sonic, cosplaying Sonic, and he had like a little Wonder Boom Bluetooth boombox, and he was just like playing the Sonic music, and he was literally just running back and forth throughout like the convention. And I'm just like, I couldn't help but smile, and like I was just like, I thought to myself, I miss this. Like I miss that.
I love anime cons because I find the vibe at an anime con is so much more cosplay oriented, and that I find it to be that people love that stuff. And I also find that it's not pay to play. I find at Comic Cons there's a lot more pay to play in Comic Cons, and that you need to have more money at a Comic Con, I feel, than at an anime con. And so I've had really good philosophical discussions, and I miss anime cons more than I miss Comic Cons. But that's just how I feel. Because I find there's more interaction. People want to talk about, like, what's the latest episode of Naruto? And then, like, I've been in debates with people, and fun debates, talking about, like, who was Sasuke justified in what he did in Naruto. And meanwhile, we're in, like, an hour and a half debate outside. And then, like, people at the comment, like, guys, you got to move. And we're like, oh, yeah, sorry. And so that's happening, and it's been phenomenal. But I know the feeling on that, but again, you know, I'm making a health decision for me. But what about you, Casey? How do you feel about life?
No, I agree with Ruben. I think humans need interactions. I really do. As much as I can be inside and be okay with that, you know, going out to the theater felt like going home. I've been going to the theater since I was I can't even remember. And same thing with the conventions, you know, definitely a lot more cautious about how those interactions go. But at the same time, I think that it's a lot different when you work for the big two and they've got a media machine who are saying buy Daredevil, buy, you know, buy Birds of Prey, etc. Whereas like for us, we have to be advocates of our own product, and behind a screen, it ain't working. It doesn't work the same. I'll say that. It does work because I haven't met the majority of people who back these comics on Kickstarter. That being said, I have sold a lot more comics being in person saying, this is what Inferi is. This is what Hollowed is. You should buy this thing. I find it exponentially a lot easier to be at a convention talking to people than I do behind a keyboard.
I'm sorry that I failed.
No, you're doing like
you're doing what you got to do.
You're doing the grit, I don't want to say God's work, but you're doing great work in getting these indie creators a voice that they might not normally have. While I find that online interactions are great, like it's not the same.
There's only so much that can be done with this, and also what's happened with Facebook and what's happened with YouTube and what's happened with all of these things is that it's the idea that the competition level and the amount of things that are available has increased exponentially. And so there's just less and less and less time because there's so much content and there's so much more competition. And that's the biggest problem facing me and even getting people, you know, attention is that when there's 90 more people doing things in 90 more fields, there you go. And that's what becomes the problem with all of this. And so I'm doing what I can, but unfortunately, Facebook in March of 2020 is not what Facebook is today in September 19th, where the viewership has legitimately decreased by 50% because there is legitimately 5,000 more percent content being produced on Facebook. And Facebook in the next 2 to 3 years will surpass YouTube as a video platform, which is insane.
It's bonkers.
2 to 5 years, which is crazy. So
and that's why it's all content, man, and that's why we have to keep creating and keep going to conventions and things like that. And you know, I think we're all excited for next year, and hopefully things will get better and we can even do more of these things. But it is definitely a key component in indie comics to be able to hit the cons, be able to meet people face to face. In my case, I'm going up to New York Comic Con. The Illusion Witch isn't even going to be at the booth. I'm just going there to meet the team and meet Behemoth and meet the people I'm going to be working with and starting this whole life journey and adventure with. So again, it's all very important. But yeah, man.
And so obviously, I want to give both of you now an opportunity to self-promote because there's a lot of stuff going on. And, you know, obviously, you know, got to wrap up. I'm getting the cue here from the private chat. So obviously, people have things to do. So obviously, where can people find this Kickstarter? Where can people back you guys? And where can people check you guys out and all that stuff? And obviously back the Kickstarter. I think I put the link up above and a variety of other things. So obviously, you know, all that stuff.
Ruben, you go first.
I'm gonna go first. Okay, so I'm on Twitter at Boomer Campbell. Boomer.
Thanks,
hope
Boomer.
you enjoy it, man. Yeah, thank you, Boomer. So you can find me on Twitter at Ruben the Writer, Instagram at Ruben the Writer, Facebook Ruben Romero. You can find the Kickstarter by searching Inferi. That's I as in Igloo, N as in Nancy, E as in Echo, F as in Frank. E
no,
as in
dude,
Echo,
you already spelled it wrong.
Am
you
I
added
spelling it wrong?
E before the F.
What am I doing it? Dang, I had it planned out. I got nervous. Dang it. So Inferi, look up Inferi 1 and 2, or just the word Inferi. And you can find it on Kickstarter, or you can find it on any of our social medias.
He didn't write this book, actually. We had to have
it wasn't
go.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I can't spells. Did I? I did. I put the E before the F.
And you can see Ruben in a few weeks in person if you happen to go to New York City Comic Con.
Exactly. And you can see me at New York Comic Con at the Behemoth booth, and you can make fun of me for not being able to spell my own name.
Oh my gosh. I'm on all social media at Chaz Voltaire. It's a name I made up in high school, and I haven't gotten rid of it. Inferi on Kickstarter. I've got Kintara Stone, the Immortal Templar, coming to Kickstarter in 11 days. And then we both have Kickstarters running in November, I think. So just search our names and you can be notified of when we have a new project that drops, because we'll probably be back on the show in a month or a month and a half.
Yeah.
Maybe if I make it.
If you make it, yeah, it's busy. You were constantly running shows, which is awesome. So
There should be like 6 spots already filled in October. It's
there
sad.
you go.
It's not even in September, and 6 spots are already filled. It's bad. It's bad. Having said that, obviously what I've been saying is you have to back indie, and one of the things that's super important is backing Kickstarters, but also even going beyond that. Following people on social media, picking up their other works, obviously seeing people in person, picking up other things that they've worked on, super important stuff. Obviously Instagram, Twitter, Facebook pages, sharing it out goes a long way. If you share something out, you don't know who's looking at it.
Yes.
Very important. Also, obviously I'm an indie content creator, so finding me and bothering me on social media is important. Sharing this out, I appreciate shares. Just buy me a coffee. Obviously, that's very similar to Patreon. While I do have a sponsor, this stuff is helpful because all the money does go back into this show. And obviously, buying equipment and a variety of other things is not easy. And things are expensive. Buying a new camera is not cheap. And my sponsor only covers so much at the moment. There's some stuff coming out that I can't talk about at the moment that's about to go on. Hopefully, my dog isn't going to bark because she wants to go outside. Said that. Obviously, though, as I stated, buy me a coffee. It's in the link up above as well. And on that note, I'm going to give you guys the final word.
Thanks for everyone who watched the show today. Please go support Inferi, just like Andrew said, even if it's just a share. Absolutely fine. We'll take it. We love you and appreciate you. So thank you guys. Thank you, Andrew, for having us on again, man.
What he said, ×2.
Well, I have nothing else to say, so I believe that is a wrap.
Bye, guys.